Okay, so I just have finished ecstatic dance class or whatever that was called. Um, it was very interesting. I guess on a personal level, it felt very much like prophetic worship, which didn't surprise me. I thought it would going in. Um, I really liked the people. I liked their energy. I also really was more reserved than I expected I would need to be. Um, so it was just an interesting set of experiences, I guess. It went really fast. I felt like the whole thing lasted like 20 minutes and it was 2.5 hours. So I do that with meditative spaces and time. Um, so when it began, it's in a really cool location. It took me forever to find it, but I got here in time, so that's good. But it's at the Samson Art Center, which is kind of right behind there's a really pretty white building that's next to the Dallas World Trade Center. It's kind of over a street behind that, but right off Harry Hines, and getting to it's kind of a thing. It's in the Oak Lawn area, I think it is called. And originally GPS had routed me into this really cool neighborhood I'm gonna have to learn more about too. So that's a whole thing. But it took me a few minutes to find it. I got here at first. I was like seeing all these really nice cars in the parking lot. I am so out of place. But the people were great. The minute I walked inside, it was kind of hippie-ish, kind of flower childy, but very loving. And the opening circle was great. I got right in time for that. And then they started, and once the music started, I was like really feeling the need to stretch. And I'm glad I did, because really there was already one moment where I wound up getting a Charlie horse. Like, my body just needs to stretch. So that's mostly what I felt. And they also had like this thing where if someone wanted to dance with you in your bubble, you could dance together, and there were a lot of people that kind of wound up doing that. And my space tonight was like, leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to be in anybody's bubble. I don't mind experiencing this. I don't mind being in the collective, but I wanted to be individually in the collective. So I was really trying not to be off-putting. But I also just really needed to be in my body and feel it and all of that. So it was so different from ballet, and I did not think I would feel that ballet-ish in there. But I will tell you, I have never craved a ballet bar more in my entire life. Like, I just really wanted to push some stretches out so I could move better, and there was nothing to grip or hang on to. And the structure of it and all that. So I was like, and I kept finding myself like standing in third position or fourth position. And so I was like, wow, I just naturally default to a lot of this. And then started looking at people's feet and noticed there were some other people that kind of did that too, mostly men. I think one of them's actually in one of my dance studios that I've taken classes at. But, so anyway, this stuff started, and at first they were doing all this stuff like letting their heads roll free and all of that, and I tried that, and then my body was like, no, we are going to get dizzy if you do that. So I was like, okay, body, we don't have to play those rules. And so I eventually just sat my ass down, but I found I could stretch more than normal, and I was really feeling the need to feel grounded and just kind of breathe in and absorb everything. So I did a whole lot of, I don't know, kind of, and I wasn't the only one doing this, but ballet stretches, I guess, but more yogi, I don't know, but just really feeling like what parts of my body were tight and what weren't. And there were a lot of places that are just tight. I was feeling this when I meditated with you guys on Sunday too. Like, I kept feeling the need to elongate my spine, and get my head centered straight over my spine and not cocked to the side, which I tend to lean towards when I type and stuff. So but there was particularly one side of my body that was having trouble, and I could feel like everything really intensely. So spent like probably I don't even know how long actually, because the way the time was for me. So first part of it, I was kind of just stretching and got some water, and then started and really enjoying the music. The musician tonight was fantastic. He was really gifted. He blended everything from opera to hip hop to the Bring Me to Life song by Enigma. Is that who sings that? I don't know, I might not have that right. With a lot of different beats and rhythms. It was a very global feeling. It was just really beautiful and tribal and a mashup like I've never heard before. So it was very trance-like. You could get enmeshed in it really easy. And so then I kept seeing my body like I was inside a cocoon kind of thing. And then when I finally started moving, I was kind of just tracing out the outline of a butterfly wing. I don't even know why I was doing that, but I moved more gently and more slowly. A lot of the other people were moving. Well, there was all different levels. Some people sat the whole night. Some people moved a lot. I was just trying to be doing what my body wanted to do. And so I moved, but not as much as I expected I would. I don't think I broke a major sweat or anything, but the pain levels would start to rise. And so as I would get in touch with myself and stay in my body, but I could breathe through them and stretch through them. And so I was doing that periodically. And then in between, doing a little bit of moving and walking and just enjoying the energy in the room. And then I think this is where I started losing track of time. I started feeling the energy pretty heavily. It got to the point where I was getting dizzy and almost nauseous. It was a lot like mushroom experience was. So I sat my ass down again because I was going to fall at that point. It was just, and that was more because of the thickness of the energy I was feeling. I don't know how to explain that another way. But if I wouldn't have kind of chilled out, I would have probably fallen. Like it was like very dizzy. I was very dizzy. And I'm like, I don't know how the fuck all these people aren't dizzy like this. And so there was, I don't know how long that lasted. It felt like a while. But I have no sense of time in that. And then it finally started to lift. He kind of changed where the music was at. And I went to the restroom and came back in, and it was more, he was playing that's when he was playing more classical stuff mixed in with his mix. Things I recognized, more opera. He had an opera piece in there. It was just very interesting. Like you wouldn't expect opera to be in with this tribal sound, and he would blend all these kinds of different music together. It was just the artistry of the DJ alone was fantastic. By then, they were all kind of in this space of calm, sit on the floor and all that. And I was more in this space of, okay, I'm going to move a little. So I moved a little bit, still very gentle. And then it started getting into, they were beginning to quiet the music down. And the final piece he was doing was... there was a little bit of moment I was kind of trying to pray. That was the weird thing, is usually I can enter into kind of a prayerful meditative state versus just a general I don't know how to explain the difference. And then there's times I really feel like it restored, like I'm really connecting with the divine directly. And times I'm just kind of experiencing divine energy. This was more that level. But what was really interesting, it didn't have a big emotionally, spiritually engaged encounter like I can. But what was really interesting in it was at one point I found myself just kind of quietly praying like I used to pray in those charismatic circles. And I think that was what was really interesting for me. This was very similar, way more similar. I mean, I came in expecting it to be similar to prophetic worship, but this was the way the arc of the night went, the way people moved, even the instrumentation, but it didn't have that spiritual energy that I used to know. At least not for me tonight. It did have spiritual energy. I don't know how to explain it. There's just a difference. And I'm not even judging the energy that was there. I'm not saying anything's lesser or wrong or evil or anything like that. It just, there's a time I know and I really hit it, and I wasn't holding myself back or anything, but there's just something that comes from like at Restore when we were all in that same kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's a little, and I'm not disappointed by it either. But what was really interesting is the evening was coming to an end. He played a song and it ended with this people chanting, "I am, I am, I am." And I'm like, man, this is very similar to what I think Leah would have experienced in the story I'm running. And also to that name of God I am, and God being in us and all of that. The whole night I was like trying to stay out of my head and just feel these things. And that's why there's such a time gap. So I really don't know where I was at for some of it. Like, and that happened on Sunday when we meditated too. Like, I was there about 10 minutes and then I heard you say we were done. But, this I was a little more present for, but again, time, I couldn't get a grip on it. I knew we were calming down and all of that. But you could really feel the love and unconditional respect these people have for one another. There was some people who were definitely connecting in a passionate way. I mean, it was kind of like being at a rave meets meditation meets flower children out in the forest. It was not ballet. I will say that. It was not ballet. And so as I was thinking about it, and as people were kind of calming down and coming back to earth and all of that kind of stuff, and everything was done so well too, the lighting, the sound, everything. But I was thinking about how much we've lost. That I think there is an arc to things when you're leading worship, a place you take people. And I think we were touching that in the charismatic movement. And whether this is a reflection of that or that is a reflection of this, I don't really know. But it's the same kind of entry-level energy. I don't know how else to explain it, but like a gateway or a portal or something. And a lot of the things that I saw and heard tonight would be called manifestations in that era. And they were very similar to things you would see in the worship services we were doing, and the feelings and the things. But the difference was that in these encounters, and I'm not saying this was better, I'm just saying compared to Stoic worship where you're singing out of a hymnal, or even contemporary worship where there's like a set list, what Mike Bickle particularly brought to Christianity that I got to experience in its early years, and I'm talking about from 98 all the way up to about 2012. This was really solid and strong. So 14 years of it was this balance that he called harp and bowl. And it had this sense of music that didn't have a plan to it. Like everything that was orchestrated tonight, I think, was spontaneous. I mean, he had sets and tracks and things he was mixing. But I think he was responding in the moment and feeling the energy and all of that. And in that sense, we were doing that, with the instrumentation. And then people would come in and read bits of scripture that came to them, or poetry and all of that. But there was this beautiful, very similar synergy and coming together. And in that sense, what we had in those moments, this reminded me greatly of. It reminded me of how much I miss it. It reminded me of what I kind of experienced. And, before I got kicked out and told all the things I got told, or before I gave up on it and all that. And I went from that to a very structured spirituality, a very structured wanting to return to more choreographed dance and proper prim things, controlled movement. But it reminded me of what I lost when I left. And now, because of all the shit that Mike Bickle pulled, I'm wondering, like, what happens to the movement that grew out of it. Because what happened was, like even tonight, she was so careful in how she handled people, so careful in how she brought people back from the experience, making sure they were grounded, bringing the lights up slowly, having a few people share, and there were women that were sharing about their bodies and the similar stories about being judged for how they moved in the past, and this was so freeing for them. And mine was more about just being at one with my body and letting it do what it wanted to do, which was stretch. That's mostly what we did. But anyway, she was so pastoral in how she cared for the people and so careful about it. And you could tell the people were brought back, they were in a healthy place. She was checking in with people. They all seemed to be loving and connected. A lot of them seemed like they knew each other, and they're still kind of in there all talking. I was not in the mood. I'm really feeling introverted tonight, and I'm just letting myself be there. It's okay. But I mean, I was kind and smiled and stuff like that, but I wasn't really in a space of let's make friends, which is sad because it would be nice to make friends, but I'm okay with that. But what I noticed, and where I'm just kind of in this place, and I don't know what to say to people right now, because my heart is really grieved in a way. Like I'm okay myself emotionally, but my heart is really grieved because we had something really beautiful back then. And it was kind of like this. And we would get people into this really tender place, and then we would hand things over to a preacher to preach. And I think that's where everything went wrong. Especially after I left, because that seems to be in around 2010, it would be the first fruits of it. But from what I can put back together, and this is when I was going through the divorce and raising kids and too preoccupied to care anymore in Midland. But there's a lot that went down. I don't know what it is. And I've heard theories like about the Mandela effect and all that. Or is that Mandela effect? Maybe there's truth to it. I don't know. But something shifted. And that seems to be like the years you start to see the animosity, the Zionism, the gender wars really pick up speed. And the whole movement that had been so loving and focused on knowing Christ and oneness and loving the poor. It was based in St. Francis of Assisi quite a bit. Ironically, that got lost. And I don't know if I understand what happened, but you know, today when we were talking, I was starting to say we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And as I came to expect, like, in all that went wrong, we had discovered something very beautiful. And this was amazing tonight, but in the way I experienced it back in the 90s and early 2000s, this would be at a level 3 compared to like a level 10. I touched it briefly at Restore. But there's sadness in that I think, had people in a very manipulatable. We brought people to a very tender place, and then they were eventually led somewhere not so great. And how do we bring that back? So, anyway, it'll be interesting to see what the theater one is like in a couple weeks. 3 weeks. It's August 1st, I think. But I enjoyed it, and I probably will come back sometimes. I don't know if I can afford to do it a lot. It was $40. So, they're doing another one on Sunday to raise money for the Hill Country, and that's just pay what you can. But we were driving to Austin, I think. So, but I'm glad I went. It was a really good experience. Apparently my body wants to stretch a lot, because I was getting a feeling for yoga too. So, anyway, and I do feel good. I mean, I feel very, like, my pain levels are lower than when I went in there. I feel very integrated. It just wasn't the, like, wild and crazy dancing I thought I would do. I thought I would be, like, moving a lot more. But that's okay. I just did what I felt like I needed to do. And I really enjoyed the energy and experiencing it. I'm really confused about when I feel things deeper spiritually and when I don't. But anyway, there's just different kinds of spiritual energy, I guess. So anyway, it was what it is. I had a good time. I'm glad I went. It was definitely not ballet. All right, talk to you later. Bye.